Hey, hi, how are you? My name's Felt. Welcome back to some Deadlock. Today we're going to be talking about the mid-game. Now, the mid-game is kind of this weird in-betweeny thing in the middle of every match, where laning phase is over, so you're not really pushing Guardians and going 2v2 anymore, but it's not quite endgame because you're not quite pushing down bases and trying to win the game yet. And as I'm sure you realize from the way that I've said that, that means that this covers a good portion of the game, and as a result, it can get quite confusing to people as to what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to go, and how you're supposed to play it, and what your job in the mid-game might even be. What I'm going to be talking about in this video is a lot of stuff that I've learned in my time playing this game, stuff that I've learned from my time playing other MOBAs, and the ideas that I found helpful from them that carry over into this one, and also stuff that I've picked up from other Deadlock content creators, and high-level players that I have seen and watched content from, and I'm just kind of turning it all into one big piece of content here that hopefully will help people figure out how the mid-game works. So let's hop into things. So when talking about the mid-game, in order to simplify the concept for myself, I like to break down my job into one of three categories. These are things that I've kind of made up in my own head as to what I think sounds good for what these characters should be doing and how they should be playing. And I have no idea if anyone else uses similar terms, so I apologize if these are completely out of left field compared to what you're used to hearing. But since this game doesn't have true supports and junglers, it's kind of hard to have dedicated terms for these roles, because in other games, like League, like Smite, like Predecessor, you have designated junglers and designated supports who will do a lot of these roles as is. Deadlock doesn't have dedicated roles like that. It's just a 6 versus 6 free-for-all, and you kind of have to self-assign roles. I like to self-assign roles based on what character I'm playing. I'm going to take Mo and Krill for an example here, because Mo and Krill is the epitome of this idea that I'm about to start talking about. So what do I consider Mo and Krill? I consider them a roamer. Now, what do I consider a roamer to be? They are someone who tries to force things to happen on the map after people have started leading laning phases. In the first little bits of things that have happened after you've left laning phases, usually one of the teams will have started winning their lane, and they will have pushed down any of the opposing guardians on the map. And at that point in the game, the map starts opening up. People want to start leaving lanes and farming deeper and going after enemies' farm. And your job, in my opinion, as someone who roams the map and wants to fight a lot, is to go and find where your team is weak and support them. Say, for example, I started over here in green lane, and we had a pretty okay laning phase, and we actually took Guardian first. After we take Guardian, my immediate thought is, okay, what can I do? Well, if I'm roaming and I see that our mid lane is being pushed under Guardian, and I am Mo and Krill, who has a very powerful ultimate, if that ult is up, I'm going to roam over to mid lane. I'm going to rotate over. I'm going to go through this fastest path that I can find. I'm going to bounce off some walls. I'm going to hit some walls because I'm not very good at Mo and Krill movement. And I'm going to get over to mid lane as fast as I can. I'm going to pop into Burrow, probably, to get there even faster at the very end. Surprise jump them and grab them with a combo so that I can kill them underneath the Guardian here and help relieve the pressure on my mid lane so that my mid lane can get out of laning phase faster, push down the enemy Guardian, and start doing their own jobs better. Now, running around the map, hunting for kills is not the only thing to do if you're someone who roams the map. Big things that you can do, as someone like Mo and Krill especially, is you can be a nuisance. You can go and steal farm. You can go and run and grab their boxes. You can come in here, steal these boxes up here. You can run through the subway, steal all the boxes and statues down there. You can run over here to this camp, steal this camp, run over here, steal this sinner sacrifice, and then get out scot-free, because if you've held Burrow, you'll be really fast on the way out, and Scorn will help you survive any escape that you need to. That is generally how I think characters like this should be played. These characters that are really good at forcing issues to happen, they should be supporting teammates when fights are happening. They should be making sure that they are stealing farm, and they should be making sure that they are supporting the people who are falling behind, especially if they started with a lead. So let's look at some actual footage of what a mid-game rotation would look like with an explanation as to the thought process. This is some footage of me playing Lash for my stream the other day. I noticed that me and my lane partner have gotten decently ahead. I'm at 6.7k, they're at 5.5, and the enemy is at 5.9 and 5.4, so overall we have a higher net worth. And I am pretty high in net worth, and I have just hit my 4.8k spike. In case you can't see, I have Improved Spirit, Cold Front, Extra Charge, and Mystic Burst down here on the corner. It's a little hard to see, I know. Windows Media Player, help me. But the bottom line here is that I am strong at the moment, and I notice that my team is having a fight happening over here on the side lane. And I'm going, okay, well, I'm Lash, I'm strong, I just got all my abilities up. They're a really good lane to go and assist, because getting a Venator and a Rem ahead will be really useful for the team as a whole because both those characters are quite strong. And getting a 7 and a Dynamo behind will be really good because both of those characters are quite strong. So I rotate on over, I pop on up, I grab them both with the ultimate, and I help with getting both kills. This is a pretty solid thing to be doing once you get to the middle of the game, because getting a good rotation off like that will really help your lanes. It pushed my teammates over here up to 6.6 and 6.1k, giving them about 1,000 total net worth over the other people in the lane. And it'll also help us push down this Guardian right afterwards because they're both dead for 10 seconds, and that's plenty of time. Future felt coming in to state this idea in a different way that might make more sense to people. When you're being a roamer, you play around your power spikes, and you play around them often and early, but you don't play around them until you have them. A great example here is Venator. At around the 12k soul mark, you will probably have your orange weapon spike done, and you will have your vitality spike done, and you'll probably have 2 points in gut shot and 3 points into Iridomini, meaning that you can walk around the map and probably kill anyone that you set your eyes to, especially if you've gone Cult to Sacrifice for that extra 18% weapon damage and 12% range. So it's going to be really easy to gut shot someone into killing them with Iridomini. This is how you have to think about it if you're a character that's roaming around the map. Once you've gotten to this point of getting around this like 12k, 13k soul mark on a character like this, you could probably have these spikes done like this and be able to roam around and start killing people, which is a really good way to force them away from their farm, force them back further towards their walkers so they just don't have access to all of these extra little farm pieces here in the middle, and you can start stealing them. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to play in this type of character, but this is just what I wanted to talk about first, is the conceptual idea of someone who's roaming around. We're getting into more detail later. I just want to get these concepts out first. The next, basically, job you can have in the mid-game is being a support. Now, support is just a roamer with a different title. I'm going to be real. Their job is very similar. They will roam around the map, they will assist in fights, they will assist in objectives, and they will just kind of be there to help stuff out. The reason that I give them a different category is because of how they play is typically different. Paige, for example, is not going to play like Mo and Krill. They're not going to play like Lash, they're not going to play like Calico, they're not going to be this character who goes around the map and suddenly forces a kill to happen because they hit their abilities and the enemy is dead. They are able to do that. That is a part of their kit. But it is typically more through the idea of, I'm going to run around, I'm going to keep my teammates alive with Rescue Beam and Divine Barrier, I'm going to stun out the problematic child on the enemy team with Knockdown, I'm going to disarm whoever on the enemy team is causing me the most amount of grief that has a gun, or I'm going to Cursed Relic out their Victor so that they can't do anything. And generally, conceptually, they will be doing similar things. They're just a little more focused on fighting. They're a little more focused on being at the spawns of the different objectives, namely the bridge buffs and the urn. These are different things that people will fight over a lot in the mid-game, and we're going to be doing a whole section in this video about them, but I'm just making sure that I mention them at the moment. And a character like Paige does really well by being there for these things to support their team, to make sure that their carries don't die, to make sure that their roamers don't die, to make sure that they are using their kit and their abilities to the best of their ability, and to try and get some kills, because that's kind of the way that roamers and supports will often farm, is that they will farm the enemy team for money. Now, obviously, you still need to do camps, you still need to do waves, but it's a really funny turn of phrase, so cut me some slack. So the final quote-unquote job I'm going to talk about is going to be the carry job. That is the characters like Seven, like Wraith, like Viper, like Haze, these characters that just want to sit in lane, get as much farm as humanly possible, get ahead of the enemy team, and then show up and start killing people. Now, they won't only sit in lane, they have other things that they will do, but that is generally what you want to be doing. You want to be farming. You want to be taking all of the farm on your half of the map. For example, if I was 7 on green, I'd want to take our centers, our side camp, our other side camp, our back camp, our other side camp. I'd try and do the big 3 over here. I'd try and force out the enemy laner so they could take this big side camp over here. I'd try and force them out so they could take their baby camp and their mid camp up here. I'd try and take their center as well. I'd try and take every iota of farm I can off of this side of the map and funnel it into me so I can get further and further ahead, so that when I do show up to a fight that matters, I am so ahead that I will easily turn the tide in the favor of my team. Now we're going to show off some 7 gameplay. And first, I'm actually going to show off a mistake I make on 7. So, I'm about 10:30 in the game. My team has just taken down the green walker, which is the lane that I started in, and I noticed that the enemy Mo and Krill has grabbed Urn, and my team is positioned pretty well on the green side of the map between green and blue to start trying to fight it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm pretty strong. I finished my purple spike. I have Surge of Power and Duration Extender. I have a little bit of green, a little bit of orange, and it'll be good, right? But I go in at only 600 health here. I'm going into Steel Farm, which is a good thing. I should be stealing Farm in the first place. But then I'm even lower than I was when I started this part, right? And so as the enemy team starts getting closer, they drop the urn and they realize that a fight's about to happen. They pick it back up and are ready to actually go ahead and fight. And so I'm like, oh, great, I'll go ahead and run in. I don't notice the Rim left, and I don't notice the Geist left. And so it's just me and Yamato, and I'm under half health, and our Yamato gets slept, and I get Mo-ulted, and I instantly die. And I do believe the Yamato dies not long after, which, while I am making the right decision of showing up for the urn, after they dropped it, I should have rotated back to my lane and gone back to farming. I should have left that fight well enough alone, unless it got closer to my lane, because if I'd gone back to lane, I could have used lane minions to help myself heal up using the heal creep on it. Here's an example of me showing up to fights in a good way. I'm pretty fed at the moment. I have 12k, which doesn't sound super fed, but if you look at the enemy team, everyone other than Lash and Mo and Krill are at 11 or 10k, so I will be much stronger, especially because I've spent my money, and I have both my purple and my orange spikes. I'm getting comms from my Calico here that they want to come and try and fight this Grey Talon, so what do? I start poking them down, because this Calico is going to show up and obliterate them if we're lucky. Now, does it immediately go perfect? No, but it does go pretty well, and I do believe we end up getting the kill here, and as a result, we're able to push down the walker right afterwards, which is a really, really good thing to be able to do at 13 minutes into a game, because now that opens up this entire side of the map over here for me to just free farm. Now, this game was already going pretty well for my team in the first place, so this isn't that surprising. But what do we do here next? Because I have green lane all to myself and I can farm however I like, I start buying items that help me farm better. I work towards my leech, and then I go and take any contestable farm. I take the farm that is right next to my guardian, because that is farm that the enemy team will try and steal, because it is so close to the midpoint on the map. And then I go and steal the other contestable farm, which is these two big guys over on the side, the big denizens, the big camp, as you were. And so as a result of all of this, I'm going to start pushing my lead. I got pretty much fed off of getting the kills and assists that I got in lane. I'm now able to clear out this side of the map almost entirely. I'm more or less free to do whatever I want, because now I'm at 15k compared to the 12k of the characters who would actually scare me, the Haze, the Warden, and the Ivy, the characters that would potentially actually hit me with hard CCs that would stop me. I guess Lash could do that too, but the Lash hasn't been on this side of the map at all this game, so I'm feeling pretty confident that they're trying to make fights happen on the other side of the map. What else do? I go and I make sure I confirm Sinners, because I am one of the carries of this team at the moment, and so getting Sinners is really important. Now I can get even more spikes that help me get even more powerful and help me fight better if anything ever happens. It's all in the favor of just farming my brains out so that I, the 7 player who already had a bit of a lead and was doing pretty good at pushing out their lane, can do more in the greater mid-game portion of the game now. Now, these are not official roles. These are not stuff that I've even heard the community refer to things as. This is just how I like to compartmentalize how I want to play different characters throughout the mid-game. If I'm playing a more supportive character or a more aggressive roamy character, I like to think about things in a different way than if I'm playing, say, Venator, who I will just sit in lane and farm and get ahead and then try and rotate around afterwards. Now, Venator is actually really good at being able to be both a sit-in lane carry and a roamer. If you level Gutshot first, you can roam around the map, shove people into walls, and take their lunch money, you know? You can also get to the point where Iradomini is hitting for several hundred to 1,000 damage in the mid-game, and so you just push people into a wall and shoot them with your big-ass crossbow. Characters can be played in multiple ways, and I want to make it very clear that just because this is how I think about it doesn't mean this is how you like to think about it or how you have to think about it. This is just my personal opinion and preference on how I think about things to give myself an easier time adjusting depending on who I'm playing and how my team looks. If I have a team where I have both a Wraith and a Haze, I'm probably going to give up the side lanes to let them farm if I'm playing as Venator. I'm probably going to be roaming around the jungle trying to steal their farm and trying to force out kills and objectives on Venator while I'm letting the other hyper carries farm their ass off. Alright. We've talked concepts enough. What do you actually do in the mid-game? Well, it depends on whether or not you're winning or losing, but the general idea of the mid-game portion of this game is You are trying to get ahead of the enemy team by any means necessary. What does that entail? That entails you take down guardians. That means that every 5 minutes, whenever your bridge buffs are spawning, you show up and you get bridge buffs, and you make sure the enemy team doesn't get them. It means that if you have taken down guardians, you make sure that you go and you steal the enemy's farm. In the example of mid lane, you come over here, you make sure you steal the small camp as often as you can. You take these boxes, come over here, you steal this camp, and you steal the centers. You steal everything that you can from the enemy team. That is how you get ahead in the mid game. Conceptually, getting ahead is not as simple as you do your farm faster. It is also you take away the enemy's farm so that you are also making them fall behind. It's usually referred to as invading in most MOBAs. I don't think I've heard that term even thrown around that much in Deadlock. I don't know if that's a community thing or what other people think of it. But you invade their camps. You run at their stuff. I've mentioned this several times, but I'm reiterating it as a whole section here because this is a lot of what you do in the mid game, especially on a character like Mina. Because Mina can walk up to a camp like this in the early to mid game, hit rake, and then the whole camp dies, and you get all the farm from it really fast, and you steal it from the enemy team very fast. Now, what's the other thing we fight over in the mid game? Our good buddy, the Soul Jar. That number is really high because I've been recording this video for about 40 minutes, as you can tell. It's usually a little lower at the start of the game. But this is a big thing that's fought over in the mid game. It's why side laners are trying to push out waves as efficiently as possible. If you push out waves in green lane all the way up to the walker, or you've taken the walker and you're pushing your wave past it, it's really easy for your team to just walk up and take the spirit urn and take it across the map for you to get farm. Now, things to know about the spirit urn is if it has red candles, it's going to the enemy's side of the map, and if it has green candles, it's going to your side of the map. That is the comeback urn mechanic, and it usually happens when one team is 10% more souls above the other one. It'll happen sometimes really often in the early game, where just one team will take down all their guardians really fast, and the soul lead will just spike out of nowhere. This is a really good time to just run and grab the soul urn and deliver it to your side of the map. As long as you pick up the soul urn while that deficit is in place, it will always be whatever comeback urn it was going to be when you picked it up. I'm going to give a real quick blurb on the soul urn here, and I'm basically reading from a wiki page about this, but I feel like a lot of this information is stuff that people might not know, and is really important to playing in the mid game because the soul urn is the biggest objective that people fight over. The soul urn spawns at 10 minutes. It shows up in the air and starts dropping about 12 seconds before you can pick it up. The urn itself always starts by spawning on yellow side. So as you look at the map, we're on yellow side. It will always spawn right here before it'll spawn anywhere else. And then every 5 minutes after that, it'll alternate sides of the map that it spawns on. So 10 minutes and 20 minutes are always going to be over here, and then 15 minutes and 25 minutes are always going to be over there. Because of how that works, you should know that the zeros are going to always be on the yellow side. The fives are always on the green side. It's just a quicker way of remembering it. If you can remember these things, you can add a mnemonic device, a fancy little turn of the phrase, I don't know, but that is just how it works. Other important things about the soul urn: when you pick it up, you can't use abilities, which is quite important, but you can use abilities before picking it up. So for example, Calico can turn into Ava and then pick up the urn to run it. The only other important part that I haven't talked about is that you can make the enemy team drop the soul urn by meleeing them when they have it. Even a light melee will do it. You don't have to heavy melee them. This does mean that melee abilities will also cause them to drop it. So this is just a generally important set of knowledge about the soul urn because it is the biggest thing that people fight over in the mid game. Now, you don't just fight over the soul urn in the mid game. I've talked about two of the biggest objectives that you fight over, but there's another one that's going to feel really obvious if you haven't thought of it yet, and it's walkers. It's the walkers. Walkers are fought over a lot in the mid game. A lot of people will use pushes on walkers as ways to make sure that their team can get soul urn. A lot of teams will counter push on walkers while the enemy team is trying to run the soul urn. You can't have enough people be everywhere at once, which is why in the mid game, the biggest thing you need to make sure that you're doing is clearing waves on big timers. Now, what do I mean by big timers? I mean that every time that bridge buffs or urn are about to respawn, so every time it's about to hit like an increment of 5 minutes, make sure that your waves are being cleared. This is one of the biggest tips I can give you about playing in the mid game, is make sure that all 3 lanes have their waves cleared. It does not matter which lane you're in. It does not matter what job you're trying to pull. It does not matter what role you've put yourself in. None of this matters outside of you need to make sure that all of your waves are getting cleared aggressively about 30 to 40 seconds before the 5-minute marks. Because if you're not doing that, the enemy team will either be able to just split push like crazy and push down all of your sidewalkers while you're fighting over other objectives, or you will just be losing health on all of your friendly objectives, all of your walkers and guardians, while the enemy team is getting to just fight you like normal over the urn and the bridge buffs. All of this chattering has absolutely led me to my next point, though, which is minions win games. That sounds like an insane sentence, but I've absolutely seen minion waves that go unchecked push down an entire lane by themselves. You cannot let minions go uncontested. Minions will actually take down your patron all on their own. I've seen it happen several times. Minions will just win games. The number of times I've been in a fight in mid when my team had a slight advantage, and I've watched minions walk into our base and start taking down our everything, because while I cleared blue lane, for example, my teammates did not clear yellow or green before running to mid, because everyone was in a panic over fighting over mid. As a result, we'll sometimes just lose some of our shrines in our base, just because the minions win it uncontested. Pushing waves is so unbelievably important in this game, because it is at its core still a MOBA. If you do not push waves in a MOBA, you are going to lose the game. Felch, you finally mentioned mid-boss. Is that a part of mid-game? Kind of. So mid-game, in my opinion, typically goes from once people are out of laning phase to when endgame starts. Well, when does endgame start? How do you put a qualifier on when the end of the game begins? Endgame typically starts when all of the objectives are taken down, except for maybe base guardians and shrines. Endgame will typically be happening when all 3 walkers are down on both sides, and base guardians are being pressured all the time, and you need an extra little push to help you get to the end of the game. That happens with mid-boss. Mid-boss is basically the signifier of teams are moving out of the mid-game and starting to try and end the game now. Now, in lower ranks, mid-boss might just be ignored for a lot of the game. I know that there's quite a few people who don't realize that you can come down into the sewers and get to it. Also quite a few people that seem to not realize that these little side tunnels over here, if you just go straight down and follow the rope all the way down, goes straight to mid-boss. Now, while this video is about mid-game and not end-game, I will briefly talk about how that transition happens. The transition usually happens when one team wins a pretty significant team fight around the 25-minute or later mark. It'll usually be over an urn, and it'll usually be a pivotal point of the enemy team will now be able to buy stronger items, finish off a lot of their tier 4s, and then they can easily run to mid-boss and start fighting over it. If they win a big enough team fight, it'll often be an uncontested mid-boss, and then the enemy team will be more or less just running at walkers and trying to end the game as fast as possible, or probably base guardians if they have been pushing walkers efficiently and effectively. Now, endgame is pretty nebulous, the same way that mid-game is, but more often than not, the thing to look out for and the thing to know that you're no longer in the mid-game is your walkers are gone and we're not fighting over walkers anymore. We're fighting over things that will cause a team fight that will make the game end. That might sound weird because oftentimes people will push walkers in the end game. They're not needing the walker most of the time. They're pushing the walker to cause a team fight because having a walker up defends your base well. And so if they can force the walker to be a fight, they'll be able to kill the walker and potentially your team, especially if they have mid-boss already. I hope that helped you try and understand the concept of mid-game more, dear viewer. It's pretty complicated as a whole. I talked a lot about all the different things that you fight over and all the different things that you're supposed to be doing in general, and how you could potentially compartmentalize your job. But overall, there's a lot to learn. And one video barely covers the basics of what a mid-game entails. So always be searching out more information, to be honest, because this game has a lot of complexity. And even though there are only a few objectives to fight over, like mid-boss, urn, and bridge buffs, the game has a lot to it, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to figure out how you can push your leads in mid-game, and a lot to figure out about how you can potentially convert mid-games into winning end-games. I am not an encyclopedia of all knowledge, I just hope that I helped you learn something new. But with that, we're done with the video. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Y'all are all cool and I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all that stuff. It really helps the channel. And I hope to catch you in the next one.